Good afternoon. My name is Lee Dietrich, and I will be speaking to you today about the history of classical piano music. Now, before I begin this afternoon, I wish to state in the interests of academic integrity that all of the information here that is not common knowledge comes from one of two places. Most of it comes from Wikipedia, which is the most reliable reference in the history of collegiate scholarship. I'm greatly indebted to it. And when I could not find the information that I needed even there, I looked it up in the one place with even more nerve endings than Wikipedia, namely Magat. The history of piano music begins, ironically, substantially before the invention of the piano. We will begin with J.S. Bach. Everything in music begins with J.S. Bach. Actually, that's not really true. Bach's father and most of his uncles were musicians, so they had music before him. And actually his children were mostly musicians as well. All of them were named Bach, and about half of them were named Johann as well. This continues to cause terrific confusion among anyone who has the misfortune of trying to study them. I mean, just think of it. You're a historian, and you discover a manuscript signed J. Bach. Sounds perfectly reasonable, right? Well, who wrote it? It could have been Johann Jakob, the brother, Johann Ambrosius, the father, Johann Christoph, the father-in-law, Johann Christoph, the uncle, Johann Christoph, the son. Probably not Johann Christoph, the son-in-law, though, because his last name was not Bach, it was Elpinkel. Therefore, why on earth would he sign his name Bach on a document if his name was not Bach? Unless, this is my theory, of course, the historians are all wrong. And the Bach family was not a family at all. None of them were really named Bach. But they represented an early stage of the German Witness Protection Program before they realized that you don't have to give all of the clients the same name. Yeah, but none of that matters anyway, because if someone is talking about Bach, they're never talking about any of these people. It's always Johann Sebastian J.S. Bach. J.S.'s music includes the notorious Minuet in G, and so forth. The addictive injunction number 8. I could stop if I wanted. And a collection of 389 chorales that continue to be the bane of the music theory students everywhere. But one of the things Bach is most famous for is writing fugues. Now, a fugue once thought to be a fungus, but now thanks to modern genetic advances, we know fugues are more closely related to a family of parasitic flatworms. A fugue is a piece of music in which there are many voices. These are voices in a metaphorical sense, of course. And these voices hang around to take turns playing a figure that music theorists call the subject. When they're not playing the subject, the voices can do more or less what they'd like. But if one of them misses its turn, and for a little while nobody's playing the subject, this is very scary. And the resulting chaos is gently referred to, usually gently, as an episode. Few people actually care about this, and to be honest, the ones that do, you wouldn't want to hang out with anyway. The best part about Bach's piano music is that none of it was actually written for the piano. Bach saw his first piano when he was about 40 years old, and even then he didn't really like it because he said the high notes were too soft. Also, his name was too long. The instrument was originally called a clavicembalo col piano di forte, which means harpsichord with soft and loud, manual control. It wasn't until nearly 20 years later, just 3 years before Bach's death, that he began to take a liking to the instrument. Although, by then, in fairness, he liked it so much that he took a job as a harpsichord salesman. You can just imagine good old J.S. going door to door through Leipzig. Harpsichords for sale, get your harpsichords, new and improved harpsichords, soft and loud included. Manual control, some restrictions may apply. But anyway, since he did not have pianos for most of his life, Bach did not write for the piano. He actually wrote most of his keyboard music for the organ, or the older unimproved version of the harpsichord. Certain musicians, mainly out-of-work harpsichord players, will talk for hours about the musical tragedy of playing this great harpsichord music on an instrument so loud and crass as the modern piano. If you have some fun, you can remind one of these people that, according to none other than the late Thomas Beecham, the sound of a harpsichord is reminiscent of two skeletons copulating on a tin roof. How Mr. Beecham was able to recognize the sound of skeletons copulating remains to be satisfactorily explained. Better still, sometimes it's not even clear what instrument Bach meant for you to play his pieces on. In The Art of Fugue, for instance, he gives absolutely no indication of what instruments, or even voices, were supposed to perform it, if it was even meant to be performed. Doubts about this rarely trouble musicians as much as they should. As for instrumentation, while most people are fairly sensible and decide to play it on their own instrument, one 19th century flute player spent 15 years taking piano lessons. It's a long time. Very long time to be taking piano lessons. He spent 15 years taking piano lessons to learn to play this piece, but was driven insane before he could perform it by nightmares in which Bach would appear, flanked by 4 large, imposing men named Johann Christoph, and say to him, "No, you idiot. You idiot." The Art of Fugue was obviously meant to be played on the bagpipes. Oh dear, I'm sorry. I should not have brought that up. Bagpipes, along with, if you'll forgive me, accordions and banjos, are the equivalent of the sex, politics, and religion for classical music people. You just don't talk about them in polite company. So I'm very sorry to have brought that up. To the elite classical mind, these things, they're almost as vulgar as rock music. Speaking of rock music, let's talk about Mozart. Mozart, popularly known as Wolfgang Amadeus, although his first name was really Johann, I'm not making this up, was one of the major rock stars of his time. People would go out on their Friday nights and they would listen to him play pieces like this. Right, so they listen to pieces like that, or maybe this one, the notorious Rondo alla Turca. They had a lot to learn about headbanging. But, you know, that's what these people would do at their Friday nights. They'd go out to concerts and cheer and drink and party, and then after the concert, Mozart and the other musicians would come out and you'd party and make trouble with the best of them.